Morning, everybody. How are we doing? Sammy, United People's TV. Yep, we're still going to talk about the FA Cup final for the first few minutes of this show. Some more photos came out that I'm enjoying, and I'm going to share them with you. Am I apologising? Absolutely not. It was a great end to an awful season, and I'm going to ride that wave for as long as I possibly can. And then we're going to speak about Erik Ten Hag, funnily enough. And you can see in the title of the video, I said I'm using the word hysteria, because I think the word hysteria is pretty appropriate for what United fans have kind of gone through. Well, A, this season, and B, what we've seen in this last week or so with Erik Ten Hag's being sacked before the FA Cup final, blah, blah, blah. Going to run through the latest. Kieran McKenna is staying at Ipswich, which I think is quite a significant development. We're going to have a chat. I'm going to read your comments out, and I'm going to run through as many as I possibly can. What else have we got to speak about? Speaking about Cobby, speaking about Rasmus. Man, he's my guy. He really is my guy. We're going to speak about Martial's goodbye statement yesterday. Marcus Rashford's going to be staying off socials for a few weeks. Luke Shaw sent a big message out. I did a big keep or sell video yesterday. And you can let me know what you think in the comments, as always. Who's here from the mod gang? Let's have a look. Anuj, good morning to you. So much green. Can I just say the generosity of this community and the willingness of this community to just get bigger and better. I love it, man. And it makes me work harder. It makes me want to do more because I know this community is there. It's awesome. Carl, good morning to you. T, I saw you there. Josh, Sigmund, you're there as well. And you're probably hiding in the background somewhere. Maradona. We've got Maradona in the comments. Good morning to you. Brian, we've got Stephanie, Chris Church. We've got Chris, how you doing, man? We've got Vicky, good, nice to see you there. Nima, Robert, and Evan, who's on Facebook. Let's have a look. Tim Elston, good morning to you. David Davies, Matt Frost, how you doing, man? As always, Alan Ashworth, you're there as well. Anybody ever used to love Jumanji? Alan Parrish. Don't know why that just came into my head. I love Jumanji. Robin Williams. I was sad when Robin Williams died. That one hit me. Wayne Hogarth, good morning to you as well. Let's get into the show. As always, as I said, please fire in your comments, your questions, anything you want to ask me that I don't speak about or you want more info on. Let's get into it. Now, this photo came out yesterday and I hadn't seen it yet. And I was like, need to make like a, I don't know. I think somebody said it in the comments yesterday about there was a thread going around that was like a collection of all the best photos from the FA Cup final. That's got to be in there for me. That is a class one. Can't wait until Cobby's doing that with the Premier League title, Premier League medal, and the Champions League medal. Yeah, I just really like that photo. And there's some other good ones that came out. Celebrations from the bus. It's just nice to see. Do you think... Now, obviously, post-Fergie, we've won... What was our first cup post-Fergie? Was it Van Gaal with the FA Cup? And then we had Jose with the League Cup. And then Jose with the Europa League. And then it was... What was after that? We won the League Cup again under Ten Hag. And then the FA Cup. Is that right? Are they the five? Have we won 6 trophies or is it 5 trophies? I'm missing one there. Do you think that win against City was the biggest moment post-Fergie? Or is that unfair? Community Shield. Come on. Do people actually count the Community Shield? Is that actually a genuine thing? I suppose if you won the European Super Cup, people would probably count that as a trophy. And but that's different. Man, it's just weird. People actually count the Community Shield. Yeah, but it kind of feels like it was. I think it was probably because of the energy going into it, the season that we have had, the expectations. United were literally 7-1. I looked at that and I was like, you can't not. Well, you can easily can if you don't like betting, but 7-1. Like I knew that United were underdogs, but 7-1. Ross, you don't think it's the best moment post Fergie? What do you think is then? Like in terms of the trophy. Try and think of the other one that I was there for Jose's. I had a great week that week. I think I went to see United play St Etienne away and we won 1-0. And then came back and went to Wembley. And that was obviously Zlatan's final where he scored that header. Super Cup, Community Shield on par. I reckon they're on par, man. But Super Cup, at least you've actually got to win. I suppose you technically have got to win a competition to get. Who cares about them? They're not real trophies, man. They're not real trophies. Something that I've kind of forgotten. I kind of forgot about, actually, really. So that's Erik ten Hag and Bruno walking into the after party. And Bruno, of course, with the cast on his hand. Completely forgot that he had still had that. Man. Of all the players, Bruno deserves a rest and he's going to get absolute sweet FA. When do players join up with their international teams for the Euros? I think it must be in it's probably even less than a week or less. I just said the same thing twice. More photos. There's a couple more photos. This one here, the bromance. Malacia is indeed alive. Now, I did my keep or sell video yesterday, which I'll kind of run through and speak about later in the show. I personally think that Man United should be selling Malacia this season. You know, I think that would be the definition of ruthless, really. Because Malacia in his first season when he came here, I thought he was a very good backup for Luke Shaw. But can Man United conceivably go into next season with Luke Shaw and Malacia still at the club after the seasons that they've had? I don't really think they can. I don't really think they should. But go and check out that video. You can have a look at it. And then it's not like I needed another reason to like Rasmus Hojlund, all right? I think for a 21-year-old, clearly a United fan, and for me that it's not a reason I wouldn't sign a footballer, right? For United, I wouldn't want us to not sign a player simply because they're not a United fan, but just the fact that he is a United fan, it brings that connection between him and the club just that little bit closer. That connection between him and the fans just that little bit closer. And he had a great time. He was partying hard, and I think this is probably right up there with Rasmus was pretty much every single one of us in those celebrations. He was there on stage. Every single photo I saw, he had a bottle in his hand, which I can relate to. And he just had the time of his life. After the season that he's had, after the criticism that he's had to endure, after just a very testing first season, where he ended with 16 goals, where he won the FA Cup, I think he'll look back on this season and go, you know what? Amid all the madness, I'm pretty happy with that as my first season as a Manchester United player. And I'm pretty happy with that for his first season as a United player. And next season, he's scoring, I said 25 plus. I think I stand by that. I absolutely stand by that. Of course, it depends if we actually, give him some service, give him the ball. I need to update the stickers on here, actually. That's a good point. Mods, if you can help me, I can get some organised. I need to get somebody to draw them because they're actually all custom made, all custom drawn. But this one as well is class. And now we can go into the conversation about Erik ten Hag, which is undoubtedly the conversation right now. I'd love to. I had so much content planned this week for. I was going to run through if I had 200 million and I was able to choose what my dream summer window was. I had that video planned this week. But there's no point. I did my keep or sell video yesterday. And I think that's because it doesn't matter what happens with Erik ten Hag. I don't think that keep or sell list changes. I did that keep or sell list from the perspective of Manchester United as a football club. Not Manchester United as a football club who's got Ten Hag in charge or Poch or Tuchel. It's irrelevant. The same players I want to leave. Someone down there, Breen. We won the coupe. I love that. I love that, man. I'm still buzzing from it. I really, really am. And I asked you yesterday in the show yesterday, and we did a poll. I think there was about 2,500 votes as to whether or not you wanted Erik ten Hag to stay. And I said, I'm going to do the poll again, but I'm going to do it on the community tab. And I want to say one thing here, right? I've seen polls all over the shop. I've seen them on Twitter, on different communities. I've seen them on the Telegraph. I've seen the amount of people voting on them. none of them have engaged in the same way that you have as a community. And that's what I think is making this community just legit. It's like a genuine community. 38,000 of you voted on this yesterday, and no doubt a few more of you will. But that's pretty overwhelming. 38,000 votes and 91% are saying keep Erik ten Hag. Now, of course, part of this is going to be caught up in hysteria. So hysteria, as far as I know, is like heightened emotions either way. A bit like fan cams. Fan cams were built on hysteria. Somebody who would say something like me and my post-match reaction, that's hysteria, but it's only me saying it, so I'm not putting anybody else at risk. I'm not like exploiting someone else. Not even exploiting myself. It's just, that's what a match reaction is. It's heightened. So no doubt part of this is still in the hysteria of the FA Cup, but that will have a lasting impact. Could you imagine how sort of depressing this summer would be if we got steamrolled in that final, and that was just the lasting memory going into this summer? Oh, it would be a long old few weeks until the Euros, and it would just be a long old summer. But 91% of you are saying that Erik ten Hag should stay, which is pretty overwhelming, I would say. 1 second here. Right. Oh, Shax, you gifted 5 memberships. Thank you very much, dude. I missed that at the start. Apologies. Got some new sounds, not on the 5 and the 10, but on the...
I can't believe it. Football, bloody hell.
I like Fergie. I think I might just keep that for the 5 forever. But we've got some new sounds coming for the 20s and the 50s. Rex, you're saying, morning, Sam. Your thoughts on the legitimate questions to Ten Hag from the media after the FA Cup win? I did a video on that yesterday, Rex. I thought that the way that they treated him, the way that Ten Hag was treated before the FA Cup final, it was ridiculous. And it all came from the back of one article from one journalist, Jacob Steinberg, who clearly I gave too much credit to. Clearly he was just coming from the Chelsea angle, rather than having like a definitive exclusive. And I'm annoyed at myself for that. I got swept away in the hysteria, and I covered it. But even if I didn't cover it, he would have been treated the exact same. And he dealt with it so well, man. I think that's for me, that's kind of a big... I'm not... My opinion hasn't... I suppose it has shifted a little bit because of that FA Cup final, but I'm not focusing just on the result of beating City. I think the way that he carried himself and the way that he came out after that FA Cup final, like really sounding like a United manager, in my opinion. Just the way that he dealt with the media was really top draw. And I really liked that part because that was probably the most difficult part for him, actually facing the press. Chris, you're saying other clubs want us to hit the reset button. Supporting Ten Hag is the right thing to do. Well, 91% of the votes, they agree with you. But as I said, the hysteria, okay, because this happened yesterday, right? This happened yesterday. And when was this? What time? 12:30? 20 past 1, right? Man United is set to part ways with Erik ten Hag following an end-of-season review, which is a huge story. It's a huge scoop. What's it based off? Why is it the Centre Devils, why is it that all the aggregators jumped on this and said, breaking news, Man United is set to part with Erik ten Hag following an end-of-season review? And it's because at the end of a Chelsea article about Enzo Maresca, who is going to be Chelsea's new manager, came up with Leicester, right? He's going to be Chelsea's new manager. They replaced Poch with him? Okay, well, they did that, right? One line at the end of the article said, McKenna also has interest from Manchester United, who is set to part with Erik ten Hag following an end-of-season review. One line. Which led to, well, I said, all the aggregators saying this. And, of course, the line was changed to this. Man United, who looks set to part with Erik ten Hag following an end-of-season review. The thing with this is, all that would take is just one. All those aggregators would need to do, as if Sammy Mockball from the Daily Mail is going to release an article about Enzo Maresca joining Chelsea, and at the end of it, put one line that Erik ten Hag's going to be sacked. The Daily Mail would do the biggest fanfare in the world. There'll be exclusive headlines, front page splash. Not one random line at the end of an article about a Chelsea manager. So it just takes a little bit of logic, a little bit of thinking, and go, well, that's probably something that, I mean, I know it's written there, but they're probably going to change it. And lo and behold, they changed it. And lo and behold, they came out late in the evening and goes, well, Erik ten Hag's actually got a little bit more of a slight chance of staying. It's not just, and this is the thing, right? It's not just gutter journalism. It's about how you report it as well. And I've said that. It's not an excuse just to simply go, well, I'm just reporting on what else is being said. You don't have to report everything. You can just ignore it. And that's why I'm annoyed with myself about the Jacob Steinberg stuff, because I sat there for an hour and I was like, well, David Ornstein's not saying anything. Fabrizio's not saying anything. James Ducker, the journalist that I respect and trust. But it's a big story and it's coming from The Guardian as well. And then I did it. And obviously, well, you know what happened after. But yeah, Hysteria. Hysteria City. But it is calming down a bit now. I'm going to go down here and read some of your comments, and then we need to have a conversation about Kieran McKenna, because I think this is a really important one. Apna, you're saying, Sam, how pumped we were with the FA Cup. Imagine the boost it is for the players and Erik. Do we want to reset that with a sacking? This major trophy matters. Of course it matters. No, I don't think anybody's suggesting that it doesn't matter. But I think everybody can remember what happened in the season, right? The majority of journalists are liars. I mean, the best journalists are fantastic, right? And speaking of the best journalists, you've got David Ornstein. Fabrizio Romano, probably maybe 2-3 years ago, was right up there at the very top. But Fabrizio chose to go down a different path. I think him and David Ornstein and Fabrizio Romano were on a kind of similar trajectory in terms of their reputation for how reliable and consistent they were with the news. But Fabrizio went down a different path to David. And I think has lost some of that credibility as a consequence. Whereas David Ornstein was right up there at the very top. Andy Mitten being mentioned down there as well. The journalist that I've turned towards David Ornstein. I turned towards Andy Mitten. I've got a lot of respect for James Ducker. Tom Morgan, I think, in the Telegraph is quite good as well. Jason Burt to a certain degree. But this here is big news, all right? Because Kieran McKenna is expected now to stay at Ipswich. Kieran McKenna, who had interest from Brighton, who had interest from Laurie Whitwell as well, I think it's a good point. McKenna had interest from Brighton, from Chelsea, from Manchester United. He could easily have left Chelsea. Not Chelsea. He could easily have left Ipswich. But he's going to stay at Ipswich. I said out of all the choices that McKenna had in front of him, I thought Chelsea was the one was just like, mate, do not do that. Do not do that. And I'll be honest, in my thought process of, I'm actually going to do a video on this today. You know full well that I've said the only time that we're ever really going to speak about managerial stuff is in the live shows. I did a video before the FA Cup final saying, I think I called it, I can't believe this is happening. And I ran through everything that was being said on it. What I'm going to do today at lunchtime is run through all the different options for the managers who are being linked with us, one by one. And I'm going to give just my complete opinion on them. Just in one video, because now is the right time to do that. And Kieran McKenna, in my opinion, probably would have been one of the only two managers. Not that I'm saying that I would have chosen them, but I think there could have been a logic to understand why INEOS might make that decision. Will come with massive inherent risks. Of course it is, but we don't need to talk about that anymore because Kieran's going to stay there at Ipswich. Going to go down here, read a couple of super chats and then read some comments as well. Halftime Oranges, always like the name. Protested for over a decade for a sporting structure, making non-emotional and reactionary decisions, finally getting one, and fans are writing letters against it. I saw that yesterday. It's and I say this with the greatest of respect even to myself. Like, my opinion doesn't matter. They are going to be making their decisions internally. Of course, they're going to take a certain amount of fan sentiment into it. But there's no way I'm signing a petition. There's no way I'm signing a letter saying, you have to listen to us. Us fans, we know better. You don't. And I don't mean that to undermine United fans in the power of the voice. Because if you think about it, the Liverpool game, the protests we had against the Glazers, and we got the game cancelled. So you can't say that fan sentiment and fan power doesn't have an impact. But when it comes to what happens with Erik ten Hag, I want INEOS to be making that decision. Based across the course of all the information that they have access to, Jason Wilcox's internal audit has way more information than just a set of fans who have watched a team play football. We can only see from the outside. And Anthony's saying down there, if that is true, Sam, all the voices against the Glazers were a waste of time. I'm not saying that. In fact, that's quite the opposite. I've just explained how powerful those voices were. But I'm just saying that, of course, our opinions matter. But we've finally got, like as Halftime Oranges said there, we finally got a set of owners with ambitions to win the league, with a set of owners with ambitions to win the Champions League and to return this football club to the very top. We should be trusting that they can make that decision. Maybe not trusting blindly, but we should have belief that they can make that decision. Same with that. Okay, I'm going to read some comments down here. Jamie saying that this isn't about the choice though; it's about what they said at the start. They want to communicate. They wanted to listen and to fans and communicate with us. If they don't acknowledge this letter, then they lied. They don't have to acknowledge the letter. Are you mad? That's kind of that feels like a big sense of entitlement. If they don't acknowledge this letter that we wrote, then they're liars. No, but they might read it. Of course, they're going to be taking fan sentiment on board. Just because they don't give you a tweet about it or give you a little nudge or an update about it doesn't mean they're not doing it. I don't know. So people, as I said yesterday or the day before, I saw suggestions that INEOS were Glazers V2 and all this, and I'm like, where on earth are you getting that from? Where is that logic coming from? Really strange. Really, really strange. Jordan, you're saying INEOS need to get their arse into gear and stop it. We're angry at sacking managers when they've had 2 years and it's the players' fault. I think I've explained this before, that, and this is a big thing, right? This is something that everybody needs to understand. If INEOS were to replace Erik ten Hag, it's not because they're sacking a manager because they don't think he's good enough and they think they can replace him with a better manager. I'm just saying this completely hypothetically because I don't think Erik ten Hag will be sacked. And there's actually a big question I want to ask you in a couple of minutes about Erik ten Hag's future. But if INEOS were to replace him, it's not because they're sacking him and they think they can get better. It's because they have conducted a full review and they have a game model, and in their eyes, Erik ten Hag doesn't fit into that game model. And therefore they have to, in their eyes, bring a manager in who, in their eyes, fits that game model more. So it's got nothing to do with the Glazers just sacking a manager and then bringing another one in the same cycle repeating. But I don't think that's going to happen. But that's what I mean when I say the comparisons are very strange, to suggest that they would be Glazers v2. I just think it's odd. Yeah, you're saying, Sam, you jumped on the Steinberg story as truth. Yeah, I've already said that. I'm annoyed with myself for doing it because I questioned it for an hour and I was like, well, it's not being reported anywhere else, but it feels like it's got huge momentum behind it. So I did it. You don't have to send me a super chat when I've already said that myself 6 times. Jibak, you're saying that's an interesting topic. To what extent do you believe fans should be able to dictate the policies and decisions of a club? You've mentioned Bayern Munich there, right? Which is the ultimate dream. Bayern Munich is the ultimate dream. 50+1, right? And I've done loads of stuff on that before. The 50+1 model would be an absolute dream. The 50+1 model is where 51% of the club is owned by fans, 49% of the club can be owned by outside investors, but ultimately, with the majority, with 51%, fans hold the casting votes. The fans are ultimately in control of the football club to a certain degree. But that's never going to come in the Premier League. It's way too established. It's way past that point now. So I'd love for fans' voices to actually be heard. But it's just it's that concept that INEOS should be basing their decisions largely according to what the fans tell them to do. And that's not going to happen. And nor should that happen. Fan sentiment should be a part of this conversation, as all the work that they have been doing behind the scenes, that they have so much more information that we do not have access to. As I said, Jason Wilcox has been doing an audit of Ten Hag. He has been speaking to the coaches, to the players. What's your relationship with Erik ten Hag? And all we can as fans is what's being reported in the press. What do we see on the pitch? They have far more access than we do. And therefore, we'll be able to make a far more rounded decision. I'm going to go down and try and read a few more comments down here. Supporters should have no input whatsoever on things like managerial appointments, says Darren. Carl, do you think this is the first few signs this window could indicate the new game model? Well, I think I don't know whether the last 4 games were an indication towards a new game model, but it felt like a bit of an indication that moving away from that almost like kamikaze style football. It wasn't. It was like kamikaze basketball. That was Man United this season. 1 number 6, 2 number 8s, tons of space between each line, and it was crazy. Jibak, you're saying 50+1 means 50% plus 1 share, not 51%. My bad. But same concept there. Sigmund, you're saying we won't know how effective Ten Hag can be until we have the structure in place. I mean, that's something that Louis van Gaal would have been more successful at Manchester United had he had a structure. Jose Mourinho, in that 3rd season, had he been given the same support as he got in the 1st season, would it have been different? I think it probably would have been. I think Mourinho would have been more successful. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer absolutely would have been more successful had he had the support. And the same thing goes for Erik ten Hag. And I still feel that. But yeah, it's strange. It's like what do you want as fans? We've been asking for so long as a fan base, right? So long to have a football structure in place with a CEO who knows football, like Omar Barada, and a sporting director who knows football, like Dan Ashworth when he comes in, like Jason Wilcox as a technical director. like Dave Brailsford, not so much a football man, but a sporting man who understands processes and principles and elite mindset. And we've been wanting people like this to be in our football club, to be in control of footballing decisions. And we finally got all of these people. Well, not completely, because Omar Barada's not quite there yet. Dan Ashworth's not there. We've got all these people who have taken all these decisions away from the Glazers, although I'm going to run through one thing that's being said by the BBC here. It's a bit weird. And now we're going to be annoyed at those unless they make the decision that the fans want. And it's like, it kind of goes against the argument that you've wanted people to make decisions, but then when maybe people make those decisions and they don't make the decisions that you want them to make, then it's still the same problem. So the ultimate issue wasn't really the fact that it was the Glazers making the decisions. It was the fact that they weren't making the decisions that you wanted them to make. It's like, what do you want? Now, ultimately, I hope that the football operations at Manchester United, you can make the two things. That if you make the right decisions, then maybe then it will be the decisions that fans want. Now, the question I want to ask you here, which I think is a really curious one, is this. And I hadn't really thought about this. Obviously, Erik ten Hag next season is going into his third year of his contract. And by the end of that, he's out. So do you agree with Nick here? He's saying, well, basically you're at the point now with INEOS where you don't just let him limp into a last season, because then Erik ten Hag, going into next season, he still has no security over his future whatsoever, or future over a long-term plan. And he kind of feels like a little bit of a lame duck, I suppose, because he has no idea what's going to be going at the end of the season. So, do you give Erik ten Hag a new contract? Do you give him that new 3-year contract and actually pledge yourself towards an actual long-term strategy? Because if for example, Erik ten Hag was to be given a new 3-year contract this summer, it means that Erik ten Hag will be here for 5 years. I'm interested to know what people think about this down in the comments. Because up until this point, Erik ten Hag has sort of been, they've let it linger, all right, because they hadn't made a decision. I might even put this down as a poll. So I think this is a really good question. I don't think too many people are talking about it from this angle. Jordan, you can't give managers rolling contracts. It's not a short-term tenancy. Now you can have a monthly rolling contract. You either want the long term or you don't want the long term. This is the point I'm trying to make here. It's not about keep Erik ten Hag there for one more season. If you really want him, then you want him. Frogman, can we move on, Sam, and talk about something else? No, we can't. We are talking about the manager of our football club, which is going to determine the whole long-term direction. If you don't like that conversation, I don't know what you want to talk about right now, then. Would you give Erik ten Hag a new contract? Or would you want INEOS to give Erik ten Hag a new contract? Yes or no? Right? I'm going to read, I'll see if there's any super chats that I missed down there, and I'll go and read some of your comments. Selling Malacia is a bit too harsh. A loan is best. If you want a ruthless perspective on it, and I'll be honest, it probably, from a realistic perspective, it was like trying to sell Phil Jones after he was out for like 9 months. I think you probably may have wanted to, but who was actually going to buy him because he hadn't played football? I think probably the same thing goes for Tyrone Malacia. I think even if from a ruthless perspective, you might do that, I think there'll be a lot of clubs that go, well, why am I going to spend money on a player that has been injured for a year? That would be a massive risk. So may well be a loan with an obligation. Don't know. But some transfers do that now. Like, that's kind of how... Who was it? Who's the bloke that Gonzalo Ramos joined PSG, I think, on loan last season? I'm going to go down here and see. I'm going to read some of your comments on this. Anthony, you could at least give him another year, see where they're at, and make a decision. You would be in the same place we are now. Precisely. There's no security for Erik ten Hag unless you give him a contract. He's walking in the same way he's been walking towards the end of this season, not knowing when he's going to have a job. He'd be walking towards the end of next season. So therefore, it changes your mindset. It's a bit like Adebayor playing for a contract. Remember it's a bit random there, bit of a segue. But you know how Adebayor, whenever like a contract was coming up, he would just turn into like the God's gift to strikers. If Erik ten Hag is concerned about his job at the end of the season, certain decisions that he makes and certain things he does may well be different as a consequence of that. And which changes, of course, if you give him a new contract. That's part of the issue, says Aaron. It's not just next season, it's the long-term view of the project and if he is in that vision. And that's what I tried to say there, right? Is if INEOS do replace Erik ten Hag, they're not sacking him because he's an awful manager. They will be replacing him because they don't think that ten Hag fits that long-term vision, because they are approaching this with a long-term vision. You might want to win the Premier League next season. INEOS, probably behind the scenes, are going, right, internally, we know there's no chance of us winning the Premier League next season. We are not going from 8th to winning the league. Our ambitions will be staged, staggered, and laddered. Next season, back in the top 4. Right, that's probably the main ambition. But if they do decide that Erik ten Hag fits that model, then he probably should be given a new contract. And we should decide that Erik ten Hag is our guy. We trust in this project in the same way that Bayern Munich have not just hired Vincent Kompany because he got Burnley relegated. Bayern Munich have hired Vincent Kompany because they feel that he is the right man for their game model. He is the right man to take Bayern Munich, and they believe in his principles and his underlying philosophy to take that Bayern Munich team back to the top. Issue is he's going to have to do that in year 1, probably, because that's what Bayern Munich is. Performance-related contract. Does that exist in managers? I mean, of course, managers are going to have targets, right? You can have main targets at the end of the season, and Ten Hag's failed in that sense. Well, in the league anyway. Thank you very much, Halftime Oranges. Honestly, it's 10 out of 10 username. You must have been well happy when you came up with that. Sent in a super chat, and he sent in 5 gifted memberships, and we do both for you.
I can't believe it. I can't believe it. Football, bloody hell.
Halftime, you're saying if they decide to keep him, he has to get a new contract. Long-term rebuild under short-term manager making decisions for short-term success is a disaster. I might put this one as another poll, maybe today, maybe tomorrow on the community tab, because I think that's a really, really good question. Ask some proper questions, says MMA. I'm listening, dude. Give me your proper questions in the comments then. I'm listening. But as I said, I haven't really done too much of a comment on each individual manager who's been linked to Manchester United and whether I think they would be good or bad. But at lunchtime today, I'm going to do that. I'm going to cover every manager that's been linked because I think it's reached that point where I think the conversation is fair to have. The season is done. The season is over. And as it stands, as I showed there, currently the sentiment among United fans, I wonder what the sentiment would have been after... Were any polls taken after Crystal Palace, for example? I bet there were. And I guarantee you it wasn't 91-9. But who can't get swept away? Who can't get swept away by that FA Cup final? I certainly did. I certainly have as well. But you know what I mean? You know what I was saying there about how we finally got football people in charge of football operations. I saw this article from the BBC yesterday, and I was like, where's that come from, right? Ten Hag exit would hinder United financially. Yeah, don't care about that. And then this bit, Simon Stone, first line. Manchester United co-chairman Joel Glazer and co-owner Sir Jim Ratcliffe are leading the club's end-of-season review that will determine whether Erik ten Hag remains in the job. Now that's red flags. That there is red flag city. Joel Glazer should have absolutely zero involvement. Jim Ratcliffe, not that he shouldn't have involvement, but he should basically have sign-off. Not really involvement. The decision should be, well, I don't know how much the decision can even be led by Omar Barada right now. Because he's on gardening leave. He's not joining Manchester United until the 13th of July. That's ages away, man. Carl, you're saying the Glazers own 75% of the club. Of course, they're monitoring. There's a difference between monitoring and leading the club's end-of-season review. Very different rhetorics there. And of course, this is a footballing decision. Right? This has nothing to do with this is football operations. Who is our manager next season has got absolutely nothing to do with the Glazers. I don't know whether it's a bit of a strange thing. It's been reported by the BBC and Simon Stone, but has that been reported elsewhere? I haven't actually seen that elsewhere. Of course, sacking Erik ten Hag would cost money. He's got a contract. That's what happens in football. But yeah, INEOS were meant to be in charge of sporting decisions, and I think they have been so far, and that's why that one caught me off guard. Let me see what the poll is saying down there about this, right? So we've got 850 votes there. And I said, would you want INEOS to give Erik ten Hag a new contract? And 86% of you are saying yes, that you would. And I think if I sat down there that's what I like to do, just me personally, when I'm trying to prepare for videos for stuff like this. I think, right, okay, what are all the reasons that people could argue for? And I write them all down. And what are all the reasons people can argue against? I write them all down and I put it all together and I go, which side has more evidence? And I think if we're truly, as a fan base, committed to the concept of long-term planning being at the core of our decisions, and if Erik ten Hag stays this summer, then you give him a new contract. Otherwise, next season, he's just walking towards... He doesn't know what he's doing. He has no long-term... absolutely no long-term guarantees of his future. And it means that decisions that he makes that season will therefore be geared towards the short term rather than the long term, because he'd need the short term to get the job again. You know what I mean? Which I think Erik ten Hag is... Well, actually, quite a lot of what Erik ten Hag did this season was more towards the long term when you think about it, wasn't it? Like, he got it wrong. And I hope that if there's a V3 of Erik ten Hag next season, he changes this, because I will not deal with it. Well, if he doesn't. This season, he was so determined that his play style was correct and that it would eventually prove to be true that he just stuck to it. He just stuck to that style and it did not work. Of course, he was saying that when the players are back from injuries, it's going to be better. It's going to be better. And it was against Wolves, and then players got injured again. And then, well, it was great against City. Would you give him one? I've already answered that question. What's the question down there? I just answered that one. Oh, did I? Maybe I didn't. My immediate reaction is to be hesitant. Because of the noise. But if INEOS really do believe that Erik ten Hag is the man for that, because the only reason Erik ten Hag stays next season is because INEOS think he fits the game model. And if he fits the game model, then you're going to have to give him a new contract. You don't have to give him a new contract, but that would set the marker down. You want to send a message to the squad. There you go. I think it does make sense. Yeah, I think Nick is correct. It is either back or it is sack. So either get rid of him and bring someone else in who fits the game model, or tell Erik ten Hag, you are the man. here's a new 3-year contract. That means that you're going to be here for 5 years as a manager. The first 2 years have been all about setting foundations and getting rid. This summer, we're going to be getting rid of this squad. This summer, we're actually going to be signing players according to our game model, which we think that you fit, rather than you telling us what players we sign. Blend those two together, and for the next 3 years, let's go. I think Nick's right. You either give him a contract or you get rid of him and you bring someone else in to fit that game model. Right, let's move on. That's a very interesting conversation, I think. That's why I saw that question. I thought it was really good. Araya, you're saying Erik ten Hag fits the game model, doesn't he? I mean, we don't know that, man. We really don't know what the game model is from Wilcox. We can presume what it is, and it should be a Manchester United team that dominates possession. Actually, that's a lie. A Manchester United team that has control of the game. You don't necessarily need to have possession. Like, it's not tiki-taka football anymore. You don't need to have 70% possession to win a game of football. But United need to have controlled possession and be aggressive and proactive with it when we have it, not Louis van Gaal possession, all right? We need to have the ability to hit on the transition. There's different key points that we could say, right, this should be the game style, but we don't know just yet. I think we'll find out very soon, though. I can't imagine that this review takes too long. Well, we take a week. Let's find out. I'm really enjoying this conversation. I hope you are too. If you are, by the way, can you please drop a like and please keep firing your comments in. I'll go to Facebook for a couple of comments. Danny's saying, so now he has won the FA Cup. All the poor league results are forgotten. If he had lost, he would be gone. There's no game style right now. I don't think anybody is forgetting about the league. Are they? Don't think they are. But any decision on Erik ten Hag will not be based on the FA Cup. Any decision on Erik ten Hag will not be based on just what happened in the league this year. It will all be based on what's happened in these first 2 years as a whole collective and whether he fits the model. That's how it's going to go down. Gary, you're saying build stability and back Erik ten Hag. Well, 87% of you are saying that in the poll there. 1,100 votes and 87% of you think that Erik ten Hag should be getting a new contract if it is decided that he is the right man for INEOS. Let's move on to quickly talk about a couple of players, right, for the end of the show. And the first one we'll speak about is Marcus Rashford, who no doubt is one of the biggest talking points this summer. Right? This is the biggest talking point this summer. Is it the biggest talking point? I think of all the sales that could happen this summer, I think Rashford is easily the biggest one. And I think it could happen. I think it very much depends on whether a big enough bid comes in. And I've always suspected that PSG would, but I might be completely wrong on that. Okay. But Marcus Rashford there yesterday on Twitter saying this. He goes, it's time to come off socials for a few weeks. I plan to rest and reset mentally after a challenging season individually and collectively. Thanks to the fans that stood by me through a difficult period, and to the ones that didn't, just remember at United, we always stick together. I wish that I think those words of, I think that concept has diminished a bit. Like take fucking Bruno Fernandes, for example. I've so many times this season had to come here. I'm not saying it's just people. I'm not saying it's you in the comment section now, but just I've had to defend Bruno against so many United fans. I'm like, what club do you support, man? So this idea that at United we always stick together, I don't think that's the case in the modern version of football. Because social media, it's like the world's biggest pub. And everybody has the ability to shout now and be heard. So I don't think it's quite as together as it once was. And Rashford deserved an absolute ton of criticism this season, man. And I don't think anybody can feel sorry for him that he decided to go out in Belfast and have a few drinks. Right? Mate, I've just explained it's the world of social media. It is nigh on impossible for a celebrity of that stature to go out in a normal place and not get his photo taken or a video taken. And Rashford would have known that. What was the reason that he did there? Where was he mentally that led up to that point? We don't know. And that's what he's saying about resetting after a challenging season. I'd be fine if Rashford was here next season. And at the same time, if Marcus Rashford went to... For Marcus Rashford to leave this summer, he has to go and tell Manchester United that he wants to leave. And Man United also have to receive a bid big enough. And I'm not sure both of those two things will happen. We'll see. There's a comment there from, who's that sent super chat? Bodie, how you doing, man? He's saying, quickly, sorry, honest thoughts on Nagelsmann for United. Love from Australia. Well, Nagelsmann, of course, is staying at Germany. Back when the stories first started emerging about Erik Ten Hag's future being in doubt, Nagelsmann was one of the main names, and then somebody tried to throw Zinedine Zidane's name into it, and I was like, what's he doing? Nagelsmann, prior to United going to... Was Nagelsmann already at Bayern Munich when Erik Ten Hag joined Man United? I think he was. And if I'm... Man, that dog's gone crazy again. What is with these dogs? God damn. Oh, dogs. I'm waffling about United here. But I'm pretty sure that Nagelsmann wasn't he sacked when Bayern were like second, like 1 point off the top, and they were still in the Champions. I think it was like a really weird sacking. Anyway, I think he could have been a candidate, but I'm pretty sure that Nagelsmann and Ten Hag were considered. I think Nagelsmann had a little bit more stock, but they were considered two of the brightest younger coaches coming through. Is he younger? Actually, I think he's a lot younger than Erik Ten Hag. Anyway, we don't need to speak about him because he's not going anywhere. But somebody who is going somewhere, somebody who's already gone, is Anthony Martial. And this is what he said on Twitter. There's no point in me reading the whole thing out. He said, it's with great emotion that I write to you today to say goodbye. Had the immense honour of wearing this shirt. You've been unwavering in your support. Passion and loyalty have been a constant source of motivation for me. I'd like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for everything you've done for me. Songs, encouragement, and your love for the club are memories that will remain engraved in my heart forever. Also like to express gratitude to teammates. Manchester United will always be in my heart. Thank you again for everything and see you soon. Anthony Martial is gone. Daz, you're saying Martial is an INEOS decision? I mean, that's not right. No, it's definitely not true. Anthony Martial is Man United going, well, thank fuck that contract's over. He had some iconic moments, man. It's kind of... What would you say is Martial's most iconic moment? Because it's probably going to be his first goal against Liverpool. Literally, the first thing he did at the football club. 9 years... Is it 9 years ago? He must have been like... I think someone just sent a comment there. 1 year off a bloody testimonial. That is mad. Or the Everton semi-final. I think it's probably the Everton semi-final, man. But that goal against Liverpool... Oi. I mean, I don't... he's not leaving with any sort of... Well, there is a lot of negative feeling towards him. But I blame Ed Woodward far more for that contract than I do Anthony Martial. Of course Martial's going to sign that contract. I think he got that contract... What was a 5-year contract just expiring? I'm pretty sure he got it in 2019. I'm pretty sure that was a season where Martial, Rashford and Greenwood scored 70 goals between them. And we were like, our front three is set. We are sorted. I think that was like Black Gloves, Anthony Martial. And we all thought, yeah, it was Woodward who did it because he just got it into his head that we can't possibly have a repeat of Pogba. So we can't let any players' contracts go down. So just give them massive bumper contracts. And then when we want to sell them, they've got huge contracts. So we can sell them. And then we couldn't sell him. And then he didn't want to leave. And then we had to pay him 250 grand a week for 5 years. Awful contract. I don't blame him for that, though. I blame Woodward. I'd sign it. You'd sign it. But anyway, I'm just glad he's leaving. Him leaving, good. Varane leaving, good. And there has to be a lot more that leave as well. That's what I think anyway. This summer has to be the actual, finally, the reset of this squad that we have been wanting for ages. I'm going to speak about my keep or sell video there. Danny's saying, don't forget Erik ten Hag's influence on how our successful academy have played. Sacking him means a total reset, not from the first team. I would kind of disagree on that part, Danny, because I think, hypothetically, if Erik ten Hag was replaced, I don't think that the game model principles would actually shift too far away from where Erik ten Hag is, or where we thought Erik ten Hag would take us. And I think that would apply to the academy teams as well. I think the modern version of Manchester United, I'd love that to have been a hybrid of the best parts of Manchester United under Fergie and the best parts of Ajax. That's what I thought we were going to get with Erik ten Hag. And maybe we still can. I thought that as a modern identity of Manchester United would be really, really cool, man. And successful. And somebody else who sent a message out yesterday was Luke Shaw, who, of course, missed 80% of the season? 75%? I have no idea. He missed a lot of the season. A lot of the season. And he sent a message out here as well. Happy for the boys to lift the trophy. He goes, this season's definitely been the most frustrating for me. Setback after setback. I pushed so hard. There's nothing I want to do more. I don't normally react to things I see on social media, but there's a lot of people questioning my loyalty to this club and asking how I'm fit for England, but not United. Reality is I'm not 100% fit for either. I appreciate having updated you all my injuries and where I'm at. Thank you for all your patience. If you want to go and read it, I believe that's on Luke Shaw's Instagram account, if you want to go and read the full statement. But Luke Shaw been missing whole season, really. Not whole season. As I said, 75%. We've missed Luke Shaw for 75%, and we've missed Malacia for the whole of it. We've done nearly an entire season without an established natural left back. And the fullbacks are so ridiculously important in Erik ten Hag's system. Yeah, Lyle, I know. Luke Shaw's never played a full seat. That was my first ever European away game. Was Eindhoven. When Luke Shaw snapped his leg. That was my first ever away game. I remember just being there. You were just standing in the corner going, you saw something happened. Everyone's looking at you going, what's happened there? And it was just like a 5-10 minute delay. And then I think somebody like about 6 or 7 rows down to the front was just putting up they managed to get signal and then they managed to get a video up of it. And everyone was like, it's brutal. Best part of that game was they played Sweet Caroline at half time and the whole end was going. I enjoyed that bit. I think that was before it really became a boxing anthem because it's really annoying now. Sweet Caroline is just ruined by boxing. Anyway, I could see Luke Shaw being sold, and not this summer though, I don't think. There's certainly question marks about his future, and as I said, I did that video yesterday and I put it, I think there's 19 players at risk in this squad, at risk of being sold. I don't think, it's not possible, right? How many players do you think, put it in the comments, how many players do you think could conceivably leave Manchester United this summer and we'd be able to cope with the shift in the squad? Because you can't have 19 players leaving. You can't sign that many players. You can't embed that many players into a squad at once. It's just dangerous. It's not dangerous, but it's tough to have that amount of shift in one summer. 15 says Kelechi, 11 says Leela, 10 leave, 5 in says Neil, 10 says Gustav, 10 says Dan. Quite a few of you saying 10. Paul, you're saying 14. Ian, you're saying 8. Well, if we go to this and this, I'm going to be doing more of the, man, I forgot I did all this. Oh, man, I'm good. Sorry, I just picked myself up there. Well, the whiteboards, it's not really the time to speak about the whiteboards and the transfers yet, all right? But there's 3 players who have currently left. Martial, Varane and Fernandes. 3 guarantees. I think Tom Heaton's probably going to be leaving. I think Johnny Evans, personally, will be going into a coaching role at the club. I don't think he'll leave, but I think he'll just go into a coaching role. He might actually replace, hot take, Tom Huddleston's left. You could see Johnny Evans step down into a coaching role with United's under-21s and become that senior player who can also play for the under-21s. Because I think they're allowed like 1 or 2 players over the age of 21. Last 2 years, it's been Tom Huddleston. Before that, it was, I can't remember his name. Who was it? There was somebody else before it. But I could see Johnny Evans doing that. Ended up coaching the under-21s and also playing for the under-21s. But that's 3 there. Quite a few of you are saying 10 plus. Paul McShane. Thank you, Neil. It was Paul McShane. I would love to see 10 plus. Right? I don't know whether we're going to be able to manage to do 10 plus. I hope so. Because that's 3 out there. And Casemiro's got to go. That's definitely 4. And I did my list yesterday. I said there were 19 names on my list. Carl, that's the worst start to a comment ever. To make the whiteboard even more complex, it would be nice to see the savings in wages too. No. No. These whiteboards are already complicated enough. No more. Go and look and find your wages yourself. You're trying to put me in an early grave, you are. Look, last minute or so of the show. I should have said that. It's 1 hour and 2. That was a long old show. To finish, 38,000 votes, 91% of you are saying that you want to keep Erik ten Hag. I did a poll there. 84% of you, thereabouts, you think that Erik ten Hag should get a new contract if INEOS decide that he is the right man. And I'll be honest, I agree with you. If INEOS do decide that, okay, Erik ten Hag is being backed this summer, then fine. Put your chips down. You back him properly. Don't just leave him lingering for next season. And that was my thought process going into it. Was like, okay, well, then you give Erik ten Hag until December, and then you maybe make your mind up and make your call on it, and maybe you could sack him in December. But then who the hell are you going to get from a long-term managerial perspective? Who are you possibly going to get that's going to come in January or December that's going to be like okay, that's the manager that we want, rather than somebody who's probably going to be an interim manager until the end of the season, and then you've kind of wasted another whole season. I don't know. There's a lot that's going to happen this summer, ladies and gents. I can't wait to get away. I can't wait to go Brighton. I'm going Brighton for a couple of days this weekend. I need a break. Before the madness comes in. The madness is just relentless. But thank you all for making it a great place to come and have a chat. I enjoyed that chat today, genuinely. I think that was a really good question posed and a really good debate. And I'm not saying that fans have got no power, so don't try and clip me up in saying that. Fans have got power. As I've used for the example, the protest before the Liverpool game that got the game cancelled. He got the biggest game in England, English football, cancelled. But to suggest that INEOS should be making a decision off the back of what the fans want, rather than making a decision off the back of what all the research they are doing in a brand new football operation. It's like, make your mind up. You either want a football operation that makes these decisions, or you don't. You can't have both. Take it easy, everyone.